Okay, so we'll begin by taking the 3D printed feeder and a NEMA 17 motor and fixing it onto the feeder like so, and we want to have the clip facing the outside, and we're going to assemble this with M3 by 10mm bolts and a shake-proof washer. So we'll push the washer through the bolt and then screw it into the motor. I'll just do that by hand first, just to get them all in, and then tighten them down with an Allen key. With that now secured on, we can put it to one side and go ahead and prepare the gears. So we'll start off with the large 3D printed gear, and we'll take the M5 by 65mm hex bolt, and what we want to do is take our ptfe tape and wrap it around the head of this bolt, like so. And we just want to wrap it around a few layers like this. And then break it off. And then just pat down or rip off any excess until it looks like this, and we'll push this through the gear like so. And the reason we wrap this tape around the head of this gear is so that we can get a tight fit in there, like so. And you can see that's not going anywhere. If it's still loose and you can still turn the bolt inside the gear, then you want to add another layer of, or another few layers of the ptfe tape. But that is now secure in there, and we can put this to one side. Next we'll take the small gear, and we'll want to push a M3 nut into the slot at the bottom. The nut probably won't just push in. You will need to heat it up first to get it in there securely. So taking a pair of needle nose pliers, just hold the M3 nut like so, and with a lighter just heat it up. And we want to heat it up for about 30 seconds in the blue flame of the lighter. And once we've heated it up for about 30 seconds, we should now be able to push it into that slot fairly effortlessly, like so. And take a small screwdriver and line it up with the hole on the circumference of this gear. And that's the small gear prepped. Next we'll prep the feeder gear, and to do this we'll take an Allen key and unscrew the grub screw from the gear, and we shall wrap this grub screw in some ptfe tape. like so. You'll need a few layers of this, and we do this to prevent vibrations from loosening this grub screw from the feeder gear once it's in operation. And we won't thread this on all the way, just enough so that it holds in there, like so. Next we'll take the 3D printed feeder and motor assembly and slide the small gear onto the shaft, and we want to make sure that the hole on the gear is aligned with the flat part on the shaft, and we'll just push that through. We'll just push that on halfway, like so. And next we'll take the large gear with the M5 bolt through it and push through that a M5 washer, followed by the 5x5mm spacer, followed by another M5 washer. And next we want to take a 5x14x5mm bearing and push it in to the 3D printed feeder, like so, and then push onto it the large gear, and we want to leave some space there because we'll now push on the feeder gear, and then with the feeder gear inserted we will line the gear teeth up with the small gear and the large gear, like so, and then simultaneously push both of them down and in until the large gear can't go in any further. And on the other side of the feeder we shall push another 5x14x5mm bearing into it, like so. And we'll finally clamp this entire assembly down with an M5 nylock nut, and we can just hold this in place and turn the large gear, like so, until it is nice and tight. Next we'll take a M3x8mm bolt and we'll screw this into the small gear, like so, and we want to make sure we get this as tight as possible against the motor's shaft. Next we'll align the feeder gear with the hole on the base of the feeder. This is best explained in the instruction manual in this diagram here. What we want is the teeth to be aligned with that hole there, looking at the feeder assembly from a bird's eye view. And we want to get that grub screw as tight as possible again. Now we can take the feeder assembly, put it to one side, and take the 3D printed feeder arm. We'll need to prep this first by removing this 3D printed webbing here at the top, and we can just scrape that aside to reveal the hole. And we'll take an M5 nut, push it in through the slot like so. Again, if you have trouble getting it in, the lighter technique is what you would do again here. We can then push and screw in the PC4 M5 coupling, like so. And next we'll take the 624 ZZ bearing and slide it into place. Take an M4 by 20mm bolt and push that in through and secure it with a M4 nylock bolt. Next we'll take an M5 by 40mm bolt, slide it into the slot there, slide onto the bolt a M5 washer, followed by the extruder spring, followed by another washer, and finally an M5 nut. And we just want to fasten that nut on by hand about halfway. We'll be tightening this later to adjust the tension on the filament. Okay, so we can bring back the extruder assembly from the previous step, and we'll slide the feeder arm assembly into that slot there, and then line up the rest of it with that hole and that hole there that you should be able to see through the gear's spokes. And we'll slide into it an M4 by 45mm bolt with an M4 washer. So place the washer over the hole like so, push the bolt in, and we want to at the same time push the M4 by 45mm bolt in and align it with the hole on the feeder arm until we've managed to get through it. And this step is quite fiddly, so just play with it for a while and it should eventually push in like that, and then we can push it in all the way through until it comes out the other end, and then on the other end we can just fasten on a M4 nylock nut like so and tighten it down with an Allen key. And that is the feeder assembly complete. Next we'll be removing these 4 screws from the back of the NEMA 17 motor, and we'll do this with a Phillips head screwdriver, and just remove them like so. You can disregard these screws for now. Next, as shown in the diagram, we shall be pushing through 4 of these M3 by 45mm bolts with shake-proof washers on them through the 4 holes on the top left of the machine, and we'll push them through like so. Next we'll slide a M3 washer onto the bolt, followed by a M3 rubber damper, followed by another M3 washer, and we'll repeat that for all of the bolts. Once prepared, we can now attach the feeder assembly onto the Proforge's frame, and we will attach these bolts into the back of the NEMA 17 motor where we took out those silver bolts, and we'll fasten them securely with an Allen key. And we want to fasten them down as far as they'll go until the rubber dampers between the motor and the HDPE panel are squished like so. Make sure also that the gears turn freely and are not jamming or sticking. Make sure that the large gear and the small gear are flush against each other, and also make sure that you can push down on the feeder arm effectively